Welcome to the It's Your Fate podcast. Conversations to guide your steps and light your path in deciding your definite major purpose. I'm your host, Lefford Fate. Hello, this is Lefford Fate, and in this series of 17 podcast episodes, which is hosted by my good friend and colleague Mike Saunders, you're going to learn about the principles to a positive mental attitude.
Welcome back. Today we have with us Napoleon Hill certified leader Grant Campbell talking about principle number 11, which is controlled attention. Grant, welcome to the program.
Good morning, and thank you. It's a pleasure to be back.
Hey, you're welcome, and I really am excited to talk about this principle because I think it just ties in so much with what we hear about with focus and, of course, attention. But let's talk a little bit about what the word before this will amplify the meaning, because it's not just attention, it's controlled attention. So tell us a little bit about this principle and why is it relevant for today?
Well, I think everyone would agree that the distractions that exist today make controlled attention or learning how to have laser-like focus in regards to the attainment of what your goals are or what your purpose is as relevant today as it ever was. It's an important topic, because as people are trying to get the most out of themselves, it becomes obvious you need to be able to reduce the distractions. Everyone's looking to get more effective, more efficient, and without controlling your attention and what you allow your senses to latch on to, then I believe that your effectiveness in the workplace and personally is reduced greatly.
Yeah, and that's a matter of really being aware, it seems to me, correct?
I think so. I think awareness is important. Having your purpose in mind is also important, because there are some things that aren't deserving of your immediate attention. It doesn't mean that those aren't important things, but those aren't things that necessarily you need to focus on at this moment in order to accomplish what it is that you set out to accomplish.
Yes, that's a really good point. You need to know where that compass is pointing, because you can feel like you're putting focused attention and controlled attention on this matter at hand, but the bigger question is that leading you to the next step of where you need to be?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a really big point. So what do you feel when you're thinking of or teaching this topic, this principle of controlled attention? Sometimes I think that people would get a little bit of a misconception to say, well, I am paying attention and I am doing this. Where do you feel some misconceptions are surrounding this?
Well, there's a difference between, I think, hearing something and absorbing it.
Yeah.
Being exposed to something and completely understanding what it is that's being presented. A lot of times we're hearing things and we think that we're are paying attention, but we're really not concentrating on what either the speaker is saying or what the meaning is that's being conveyed. And that can be through the writing of someone or the listening of something. We've all had situations and times where people have spoken to us, we actually heard them, but then later we couldn't repeat or couldn't tell you what they said. We've had situations where we've read things. We've understood what we read, but we didn't retain it. In other words, we weren't paying attention. And we did not.
Your eyes were reading the words. Your eyes were reading the words, and your ears were hearing the words, but you were not assimilating the information.
Absolutely. I mean, in both hypnosis and in psychology, it's called a scotoma, and that's where you literally see. You can literally see something, but it's not registering that you're seeing it. and it's a phenomena that actually happens. So,
have you ever heard
I think a lot of people,
have you ever seen the video on YouTube about the moonwalking bear?
No.
It really illustrates this point perfectly. Just kind of go to YouTube and put in moonwalking bear at some point. But basically, this video starts and there's these people in this room, and half of the people have this black T-shirt on and half the people have a white T-shirt on, and it says, "See how many times each team passes the ball to each other." So, you know, how many times did the black team pass the ball? And so they started passing this ball back and forth, and you're like, wait, okay, 13, 12, 14, and you're focused on this, and then at the end it goes, okay, how many times? And then, you know, kind of the video pauses, and you know, you're thinking, okay, 27 times.
Oh, yes. I've seen that. And then they actually had a bear, or somebody dressed as a bear walk in, and I remember that video. I didn't know it was called the moonwalking bear,
or gorilla, or whichever. But it's like you were focused on this one thing, and your attention, your controlled attention was on the passes and the ball. But guess what? You weren't focused on, the bear coming through or the gorilla coming through. And the point here is you should be making sure, and the good news is there in this scenario, their definite major purpose was focus on the ball and what color. So they were right on the money. When you're doing that, you're like focused and controlled attention. But there's so many things that come around us that can be distractions. And I think that's where we need to be. And you made such a huge point about two things. Number one, having that definiteness of purpose in mind and knowing where you're heading so that your attention is pointing the right way. And then not just hearing things or seeing things or noticing things, but aligning that with that purpose so that people can realize, this is the path I need to take because this will get me closer to my goal, or this aligns with my purpose. So this is where I need to have my attention.
Absolutely. A lot of the spiritual practices of the East involve themselves greatly in developing concentration and teaching the difference between just hearing or being present when something is presented and absorbing and being able to understand the difference in the material itself that's being presented. There's a difference between contemplation and concentration that's also emphasized as well. But I believe controlled attention is a concept that brings to life all of the other principles of the system that Napoleon Hill created.
How much do you think technology impacts that? Because I feel like people are distracted and not paying attention the way they should, mainly because they're either on technology thinking about something and have so much going on.
Well, I can't blame technology. I can say that from my observation, technology has created a situation where people have developed habits that allow technology to become a hindrance to paying attention. It's not technology itself, because you don't have to choose to use technology in a way that is distracting you. You can have habits that are quite to the contrary and limits. But what happens with most people, and this greatly affects children when parents are unaware, as many parents are, the visual stimulation that kids get from the high tech, the high definition, and the changing environment that we're producing with the greater graphics and all of that is visually stimulating these kids to the point where when you ask them in a traditional sense, okay, sit here and watch as this one teacher is trying for 15 minutes to explain this point, they're not accustomed to doing that.
Right.
And adults likewise have adopted habits and standards where 20, 30 years ago, there was no option to get an immediate response from someone that you were trying to connect to necessarily. You couldn't call them on the cell phone or do things like that. So we've adopted different standards and habits as a result of technology, and that's a decision that each individual has to make. I've seen people get into really harsh arguments with one another because they didn't return phone calls, and the person called them 5 or 6 times and certainly felt offended that their phone calls weren't returned. But when you look at the fact that they called them 5 or 6 times in the span of 15 minutes,
sure, yeah,
on a cell phone, and the expectation was to be able to reach them no matter where they are, that comes down to how we use technology, not how technology is per se.
Great point. And I wonder, too, when Napoleon Hill wrote these teachings, was back in the times where technology almost didn't exist. And so he still felt that controlled attention was a major piece of this puzzle for personal development. And it just means that we need to work that much harder given our busyness of lives, technology, whatever you want to call it. So I think that's a really big piece to consider.
Absolutely. I agree with you.
So at some point in your life, you probably were not even aware that this was a thing, and you weren't paying attention or controlled attention. Once you started putting this into action, what changes did you experience, maybe personally or even professionally?
Well, it's something that I believe the most successful people constantly work on and are aware of. So, I think certainly for myself, as I got older and matured, I understood the importance of being able to maximize my performance, my learning in various areas. So having an understanding of controlled attention just enhanced the things that I was able to do and to attain. And it's something that facilitates the learning process, certainly, and also in athletics, it means that you're not wasting your time, that you're not wasting energy on things that are not leading to the desired outcome.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really, really good a good point. Is just seeing where the opportunities lie today. Have you ever worked with a client or even a contact of yours that once you started teaching them and making them aware of controlled attention, that they started noticing positive changes in their life as well?
Oh, certainly. As a teacher, one of the things that happens is, I get people that are brought to me that have been diagnosed with ADD, ADHD, and a variety of other syndromes that have interfered with their performance in school. And so by teaching them about how to focus their energy and how to direct their energy on the subject at hand and eliminating the distracting elements, which could at times be sounds, it could at times be physical stimulations, it could at times be verbal situations or verbal distractions. When you teach someone consciously how to eliminate those things, not focus their mind on them, not allow them to disrupt their attention, then they can perform completely differently. And I've done that for many, many people over a lot of years.
Can you think of a specific example where someone started implementing this and then started seeing some good positive results and actually came back and said, before, I would handle something this way, but now I'm noticing this positive change?
Sure. I had a student that is a professional entertainer, and prior to learning the principle, the energy was kind of all over the place, but then he noticed that as he got more focused in his practice, as he started to learn, he applied that same focus to his music and was able to really make progress in a way that he hadn't done before, and attributed his study with me to that success. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, excellent. And you know, do you ever find when you're working with someone that you start teaching a concept like this and they feel like, you know, A, where do I start, or B, I'm already doing that, but then they notice, well, you know, maybe I'm not really focusing or paying attention the right way, and then it starts to clarify, because I feel like sometimes people would say, oh, I do pay attention, and then maybe you dig just a little bit deeper and like, yeah, but what about in this situation? How would you handle this? Or do you notice this? And then I think that kind of like, you know, unearths things for people, and they realize, oh, that's a level that I don't go to. Have you ever noticed that as well?
Sure. Because in our culture, you know, we have a phrase that people often use to connect with other people and to indicate that they get it. I know, or I get it. And a lot of times they don't know. They've only scratched the surface. And I think what Napoleon Hill is saying in some of the principles is dabbling is quite different than mastery. And people often confuse the two. They don't really understand that someone that's truly a master of something is someone that knows how to apply their energy to a given task. And that's why in the East they say that mastery of one thing can lead to mastery of many things, because the way that you approach studying something in order to attain a high level of skill teaches you a lot about how to get the most out of yourself. And in doing so, you apply that principle to other things, and it helps you get the most out of yourself in applying it to that thing as well. I hope that makes sense.
It does. And, you know, as you were saying that, it reminded me of a quote that you probably are familiar with from Bruce Lee. I fear not the man who has practiced 10,000 kicks once, but I fear the man who has practiced one kick 10,000 times.
Absolutely. Yeah. He was an early influence on me, and emphasized greatly the need to pay attention to the details and to pay attention and focus, develop focus. And martial arts is a wonderful way of increasing your ability to do that.
Yeah. Hey, well, let's wrap this up here with we've talked a lot about the concepts and the strategy of controlled attention. What do you feel would be an implementation plan for someone to get this initiated in their life?
I think in order to practice and develop controlling your attention, I think a few things would be helpful. One would be to understand that this is something that needs to be applied gradually, and increase the intensity and the strength of your focus in small ways gradually. Make a note or a list of things that you find yourself distracted by, because as we spoke about earlier, awareness can sometimes be curative. So by being aware that these are my triggers, these are things that I allow to distract me, you can sometimes avoid those very things because you're now aware of them, and you can classify them and put them in their proper place. The practice of meditation, exercise are all proven to help to develop your attention if you do that, and other activities that encourage mindfulness, and that's very big big area and topic that can be developed and will definitely help in controlling your attention, your ability to focus. Those are my recommendations.
Excellent. Well, Grant, at this point, what would you say is the best way that someone can reach out and connect with you if they would like to learn more about this principle?
They can reach me through grantcampbell.net, and I welcome anyone that has interest in the principles to reach out.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. It was wonderful talking about controlled attention.
Thank you, sir.
You've been listening to the It's Your Fate podcast. To connect with me and pick up a copy of one of my books, please visit www.leffordfate.com. That's leffordfate.com. You've met your fate. Now let's walk into your destiny.